So Manif is French it's short for manifestation, or in English that would be a protest or a demo. And I guess over the past year, I was interested in all these social movements that were happening around the world. It seems sort of like a unique moment that people were kind of taking action on these different fronts. And I thought that percussion quartet might be an interesting way of exploring this idea. Particularly, I was interested in the idea of how sound and noise are used in protests, and how people that are otherwise not being heard are made visible or are made audible through sound and noise. And percussion seemed like a logical jump for me with that, as it has a relationship with noise. And I think also the physicality of percussion seemed to speak to me as an interesting way to embody some of these ideas. I guess the two sort of main events that triggered a musical idea for me were the student protests in Montreal. I don't know if that was covered in the news in the US at all, but for a period of almost 6 months, people would go out every night on the street with pots and pans and march. And it wasn't just students too. This kind of gained momentum when people tried to quell the protests. They passed a law that said that more than 50 people could not gather together without police permission. And then everybody got very upset about this. And so then you saw grandmothers and families with children that would come out and participate in this. And I think that it was sort of a turning point for the city, in that it became larger than the protest itself. It became an act of solidarity and community building. And banging pots and pans is something that's easy enough that anybody can do it. So it was very participatory. So that was really interesting to me, to see this happening to a city that I've lived in for a long time. And that sort of inspired particularly the first movement. So there's a lot of kitchen battery involved. I sent a large box with most of my pots and pans to Miami. So that will be premiered, kitchenware. And then the other event that also sort of sparked an idea for me was the arrest and imprisonment of some of the members of the feminist punk rock collective Pussy Riot. I thought that was another example of maybe a perspective that wasn't being heard, and using music and noise to draw attention to an issue. They unfortunately became imprisoned, but that also drew a lot of attention to their message. And so for that, I had this sort of idea of creating a warped bell carol, which to me was kind of reminiscent of the state and the church, these kind of larger ideas, and then having a drum solo that's sort of put into contrast with that, that's sort of fighting to get through this clangorous bell texture. And then these elements continue to evolve throughout the piece, but those were sort of two flashes that I had that sort of stemmed the composition, I guess.